Hello everyone, welcome to welearn-educ. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. So today we are going to look at the pupillary reflex. And first of all, we shall look at the flow of the nerves, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic that supply the pupil. We're also going to look at the Horner syndrome in this study. So first, looking at the pupillary reflex, what is the pupillary reflex? It's just the constriction of the pupil in response to a stimuli or other factors, for example, cortical action. Now, when you look at the pupillary reflex, you see that when an eye, light is shown into that eye, the pupil of that eye will what? Will constrict. That is what you call the direct the pupil of that eye will constrict. Now, even the pupil of the opposite eye will also constrict. That is what you call the indirect or the consensual pupillary light reflex. So you have the direct and the indirect pupillary light reflex. Now we are going to look at what brings about those two aspects. Now when you look at the flow of these nerves, so we have the retinal, the medial, and the retina. The retina has the two aspects. So now when you come to this, so when you follow this, the nasal, the medial fibers of the optic nerve, at this point they'll move in the opposite side. So now if I draw here, midbrain, so we shall look at two important nucleus. You have the protector nucleus and the Dinga-Falward nucleus. So the first one is the protector nucleus, and you have the Dinga Westphal nucleus. So now, when light is shown into this eye, fibers will move before the optic pathway, that is to the optic nerve. Then the medial fibers will cross over to the opposite side, that is through the optic chiasma into the opposite aspect of the head. So now, when these fibers come at this aspect, instead of most fibers will continue to the lateral geniculate body, then into the primary visual cortex, then to the secondary visual cortex. Then now these fibers, some of the fibers will run into the So if you follow this pathway, so realize that when some of the fibers move into the protector nucleus, which is this, then when they reach this aspect, some fibers will move to the Dinga-Westphal nucleus of that same side, then the others will move to the Dinga-Westphal nucleus of the opposite side. Now, this aspect, together with the crossing over, are responsible for these two observations, the direct and the indirect pupillary light reflex. Now, if I follow this path, I realize that fibers from the optic nerves, then through the optic tracts, they move via you have the superior brachium here, the superior brachium, then into the protector nucleus, then after they go into the Dinga-Westphal nucleus, then the pre-fibers will move into the ciliary ganglion, then lastly to supply the muscles in the eye that results into the pupillary reflex. Now, so that is the pathway through the optic nerves, then through the protector nucleus, then the Dinga-Westphal nucleus, then into the ciliary ganglion, then lastly through the short ciliary nerves. Then this will supply muscles. What will they supply? They'll supply the ciliary muscles, that's in the ciliary body. Then also they will supply the sphincter, pupil. So now I'm going to draw a simple illustration of the cross section of the eye. Hope you've learned this pattern. Now, in case now I'm want to sketch this, I want to draw a small section of the upper aspect of the eye. Now, if you look at the eye, so we have the choroid. Remember, this is assuming it's a choroid, which extends posteriorly. So this choroid anteriorly it swells, forms a swelling. Assuming this is our swelling, which is going to be our ciliary body. Now, this ciliary body is made of the ciliary muscles, and they have the longitudinal muscle fibers, and also you have the transverse. Then in between you have what? Fibers radiating. Then you have the base of the ciliary body. There's an extension which you call the pupil. Now in the pupil, assuming this is our lens, that's our lens. In the pupil we have what? Muscles. So this muscle that is like forms it encircles the pupil. Is what you call the sphincter. Then also one thing to note is that in this pupil you also find the dilator pupil. But one thing to note, this one is supplied by the sympathetic pathway, which you are going to look at, the sympathetic pathway. Now this is the ciliary muscles which are supplied by the oculomotor nerve, which you've looked at. Now, innervation of this results into those action. Now, one thing to note is that I've looked at the muscles. Now, what is now the sympathetic supply of this one area? So I think you noted that the sphincter pupillae, then you have the dilator, then you have the ciliary muscle in the ciliary body. This is the ciliary muscle, the ciliary body. This is the choroid. So now let's look at the sympathetic flow that supplies the eye. But one thing is not that the sympathetic, they follow with the arteries. So if I do innervation, assuming I have the hypothalamus here, through the brain stem, so fibers will run from the hypothalamus. Then these fibers will move. Then we have the T1 segment, which is a T1 segment. So we have the gray matter in it. So in the anterior horn, fibers will use the anterior root to enter the sympathetic chain. Now, but they enter specifically in the sympathetic chain of T1. So you have the T1, assuming it's a T1 chain, fibers will move. All these are presynaptic. All these are presynaptic until they reach a nucleus, which is called the superior cervical nucleus. So I'll call this the superior cervical nucleus. Then this one now form the postsynaptic fibers. Now these postsynaptic fibers will move together with the carotid artery. That is, first we have the superciliary nerves. If you trace them further, they'll form the long. This time it will be the long. Continue as that. Hope you've noted that. So this one will continue to form that. You have the superciliary, then they form the long ciliary nerves which innervate now the eye. But specifically they innervate the sphincter, the dilator sphincter, the pupillae. So that's what it will supply. So this is the sympathetic part. These are presynaptic or synaptic fibers, but they pass through the sympathetic, the internal carotid artery. Now, assuming is what we call Horner syndrome. Now that Horner syndrome results from a defect in the sympathetic innervation of the eye. So let's look at Horner syndrome. What is Horner syndrome? So for Horner syndrome, it results, as I said, from the damage in that sympathetic supply of the eye. So what will be the presentation? Remember, if there is no innervation to the dilator aspect, the sphincter will over-function. And the sphincter over-function, that means the pupil will over-constrict. That means if you compare the two eyes, one pupil will be more constricted than the other. So that will be one of the first syndrome. What pupil of one eye will be more constricted. But remember, the sympathetic flow with the arteries. So when they flow with the internal carotid artery, and remember there's a defect, that means there will be more dilation of the artery. Addition to that, remember sweating as a result of sympathetic, which are not available. So that aspect of the face will not what? Sweat. That. Then also another point to note is that the superior eyelid will be droopy, because remember there will be no innervation for that eye. So you have realized four observations. First of all, there will be over constriction of the pupil. Then after over constriction there will be no sweating. Then will be drooping of the superior eyelid. Then lastly, from this, if there's no sweating, drooping, over-constriction of the pupil, then we are supposed to be full. You have over-constriction, no sweating, drooping of the eyelid, then also look at the vessels dilating. For that face will be dilating. So this will be the presentation of the owner's syndrome. Now, one thing to know, so we look at the pupillary reflex. Now, remember, when someone is observing, is that pupil tends to what? Constrict, despite of the amount of light available. For example, if you enter a dark room, that will be true. That will be the pupillary reflex. Enter into a dark room, pupil will tend to dilate to increase more light entering the eye. And also, when you're moving into a bright room, the pupil will tend to what? To constrict. Now, some aspect here results from what? A cortical function. Remember, the cortex, the secondary visual cortex plays a role in modulating some fibers, some aspect. Now, it's what we call the near reflex. Now, this near reflex involves first of all, there will be the accommodation aspect. Accommodation, that means the lens. Remember the lens, through the supply, through the ciliary muscles, by that motor nerve, realize that they will cause the lens to what? To bulge, so in order to converge light. Then together, apart from that, we should also realize that apart from the lens, the medial aspect of the eyes will tend to what? The medial recti will tend to contract. For example, assuming an object is here, the eyes are here together. So, apart from accommodating through the lens, that's called a convergence. The eye tends to look this side through the action of the medial rectus. So that these two tend to look at the object. So all those aspects, convergence and accommodation, together with pupillary constriction, plays a role in it's part of the near reflex. So at this point, I want to thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe.